Power isn't given, it's taken. Look around. In crowded streets where strangers brush past each other without a second thought. In the speeches of politicians who smile for the cameras while cutting deals in the shadows. In the quiet negotiations of business rooms where fortunes rise and fall with a signature. In the whispered betrayals that happen between so-called friends. Power is always being seized, shifted, and reshaped. For centuries, philosophers and moralists dreamed of a better world. They debated what justice should look like, what leaders should do, what human beings ought to become. But while others argued about ideals, one man dared to strip the mask off reality. Niccolò Machiavelli. He studied not the world of dreams, but the world as it truly is. Messy, selfish, ruthless. He revealed that beneath the surface of polite society, human behavior is driven not by lofty principles, but by raw survival instincts. Fear and desire, loyalty and betrayal, strength and weakness. His ideas were so shocking, so unflinching in their honesty, that his very name became a warning, Machiavellian. To this day, his principles guide rulers, executives, influencers, even the people closest to you, whether they admit it or not. Because manipulation, control, and power aren't relics of the past. They are alive, pulsing through every choice, every alliance, every conflict you face. So here is the question I leave you with. If people are truly ruled by fear and self-interest, what does that mean for you? For how you live, how you lead, and how you survive in a world still shaped by Machiavelli's dark wisdom? To understand power, Machiavelli argued, you must first understand human beings. Not the way we wish them to be, but the way they actually are. And the truth, once seen clearly, is uncomfortable. People are not consistent. They are not rational guardians of virtue. They are creatures of need, of impulse, of fear and desire. They shift with the wind of circumstance, loyal one moment, treacherous the next. As Machiavelli himself wrote, men are so simple and so much creatures of necessity that he who deceives will always find someone who will allow himself to be deceived. Think about it. A nation clamors for war after an attack, waving flags in unity, only to beg for peace once the cost in blood grows too heavy. An employee who praises their boss in public may quietly ridicule them at dinner with friends. A friend who swears eternal loyalty might vanish the moment standing by your side becomes inconvenient. Over and over, people prove that survival and self-interest outweigh principle. Machiavelli didn't see this as cynicism. He saw it as realism. When stripped of masks, human nature is remarkably predictable. People will choose safety over sacrifice, immediate gratification over distant reward, appearance over substance. They will follow strength, and they will abandon weakness. This isn't moral failure. It's the terrain on which all power struggles unfold. And this is where his genius lies. Because if you understand this terrain, if you see humans not as saints or villains, but as predictable beings guided by fear and self-interest, you suddenly hold an advantage. You can navigate where others stumble. You can anticipate betrayal before it happens. You can build loyalty not on fragile ideals, but on tangible incentives. You can work with human nature rather than against it. This leads to Machiavelli's most radical insight. Morality itself is often a performance, a mask worn for others to see. Everyone sees what you appear to be, he wrote. Few experience what you really are. It is this gap between appearance and reality that creates the playground of manipulation. And those who understand this gap can bend perception, control narratives, and wield influence while others cling to illusions. Once you see human nature clearly, the next question becomes unavoidable. How do you lead such people? Through love or through fear? Machiavelli posed this question 5 centuries ago, and his answer still shocks us today. He wrote, "It is much safer to be feared than loved, if one cannot be both." Why? Because love, he argued, is fragile. It depends on gratitude, obligation, and affection, all things that crumble when tested against self-interest. A friend may love you, but if standing by your side threatens their survival, that love evaporates. A follower may feel loyal, but when another leader promises more rewards, loyalty shifts. Love is sweet, but it is unreliable. Fear, on the other hand, has weight. It endures. The fear of consequences, of punishment, of what happens if one disobeys. This kind of fear does not vanish when circumstances change. People may stop loving you, but they rarely stop fearing what you can do to them. Fear, properly applied, creates a foundation of control that does not collapse the moment temptation appears. But Machiavelli drew a crucial distinction. Fear must never become hatred. A ruler who inspires hatred will be destroyed, because hatred drives people to act, to plot, to take risks to overthrow you. The most effective form of fear is not random cruelty, but predictable consequences. The boss who punishes without warning creates resentment. The leader who enforces clear rules and applies them consistently creates respect tinged with caution. That balance, firm but not cruel, is the space where real authority thrives. And this principle extends far beyond princes and kings. In a negotiation, the person who can walk away without regret holds the power. In a relationship, the partner who needs it less sets the terms. In social groups, those who control approval or access influence those desperate for acceptance. Fear, in all these cases, is not terror, it is leverage. It is the quiet awareness that one's choices carry weighty consequences. This is the paradox of power. To lead effectively, you cannot rely solely on love. Love is pleasant, but fleeting. Respect mixed with a measured fear, fear without hatred, endures. And those who master this balance find themselves obeyed long after affection would have faded away. If fear provides stability, perception provides power. Machiavelli understood that human beings rarely judge by truth, they judge by appearances. What matters is not what you are, but what people believe you to be. And this gap between appearance and reality is where manipulation thrives. He wrote, "Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are." Think about what that means. A leader doesn't need to be merciful at all times. They only need to appear merciful when the public is watching. They don't need to be religious in private, but appearing devout can inspire trust. Honesty itself can be a liability, but the appearance of honesty, crafted carefully, creates credibility. The world rewards symbols more than substance. This is why symbolic gestures carry so much weight. A politician may visit a disaster zone for a single afternoon, and cameras broadcast the image of compassion, an image that matters more to the public than months of quiet relief work. A manager might recognize an employee in front of the whole office, gaining a reputation as supportive, even if in private they contribute little to that worker's success. One highly visible action can outweigh years of consistency that go unseen. Perception management is not the same as lying. It is the art of selective emphasis. You highlight what strengthens your image, and you obscure what weakens it. You release bad news when people are distracted, and trumpet good news when attention is high. You attach your name to successes, while allowing failures to be absorbed by circumstance or by others. This is why skilled leaders personally deliver good news, but let subordinates announce unpopular decisions. Appearances must always be curated. And here lies the unsettling truth. In every field, from politics to business to social life, those who master perception rise, while those who cling only to substance are often overlooked. The quiet worker who drives results may go unrecognized, while the self-promoter is praised. The devoted partner who offers steady support may seem invisible, while the one who stages grand romantic gestures is celebrated. The world does not see reality. It sees the performance of reality. And those who understand this, Machiavelli warned, control the narrative, and therefore control the power. Thus far, we've explored Machiavelli's principles: human nature, the balance of fear and love, and the management of perception. But he didn't stop with theory. He offered a toolbox, practical tactics that rulers, leaders, and even ordinary people could use to gain and maintain control. 500 years later, these tools still work, not because times have stayed the same, but because human nature has. The first tool is strategic generosity. Machiavelli observed that men sooner forget the death of their father than the loss of their inheritance. In other words, material interests often outweigh emotional ones. By giving benefits, money, opportunities, favors, you create loyalty. But it must be strategic. Quiet, anonymous giving builds little influence. Generosity should be visible, memorable, and tied directly to you. The bonus signed with your name, the opportunity you personally delivered, the favor they cannot forget. These build not just gratitude, but dependency. You become the source they cannot afford to lose. The second tool is calculated mercy. Machiavelli warned against half measures. He wrote, "Men should either be caressed or eliminated, because they avenge light injuries, but cannot avenge severe ones." In practice, this means you either forgive fully or remove the threat completely. A leader who humiliates an enemy but leaves them standing creates a bitter rival. A manager who demotes an employee but keeps them in the office fosters resentment. But those who either reconcile fully or cut ties completely avoid lingering hostility. Half punishments create enemies. Decisive action creates resolution. The third tool is the manufactured crisis. Today we say, never waste a good crisis. Machiavelli saw that disruption opens doors. In calm times, people resist change. But in moments of fear and uncertainty, they accept what they would normally reject. A ruler can consolidate power during war. A CEO can restructure during an economic downturn. A parent can set firmer rules in the middle of family chaos. This does not mean fabricating problems, but recognizing that true change often requires turbulence, and those who prepare in advance seize opportunities others miss. The fourth tool is strategic alliance. Machiavelli advised that a prince should be the one from whom favors are expected. In simple terms, make yourself the gatekeeper. Structure processes so others must go through you to get what they want. Be the connector, the introducer, the one who controls access. The more people depend on you as the pathway to opportunity, the more leverage you hold, quietly, without force. And finally, the fifth tool, predictive consistency. Machiavelli noted that nothing makes a leader more esteemed than setting great undertakings and fulfilling them. This creates an aura of inevitability, an image of competence so strong that people stop questioning you. A ruler who promises victories and delivers them, even at great cost, earns loyalty. A modern leader who makes bold commitments and achieves them builds a reputation that discourages challengers. Consistency builds trust. Predictability builds belief. Together, they build power. These are not abstract theories. They are tactical moves seen again and again in boardrooms, in politics, in families, and in friendships. And the unsettling truth is this: those who use these tools, whether consciously or instinctively, consistently outmaneuver those who do not. Machiavelli wrote for princes who ruled city-states. But his principles are not frozen in the 16th century. In truth, they are everywhere today, adapted, disguised, refined. The modern Machiavellian rarely wears a crown. Instead, they sit in offices, they network at events, they manage teams, they negotiate contracts, they scroll social media. They don't rule with armies, but with influence. And their methods are often invisible until you look closely. The first modern technique is that of the information broker. In a world flooded with data, those who control the flow of information control decisions. A skilled manipulator doesn't hoard knowledge, they release it selectively. They emphasize certain truths, downplay others, and time revelations for maximum impact. They appear transparent while subtly guiding outcomes. In the workplace, this might look like the colleague who casually shares details that make their project shine, while omitting facts that reveal its weaknesses. They haven't lied, but they've shaped perception. The second modern technique is subtle undermining. Rarely do manipulators openly attack rivals. Instead, they plant seeds of doubt with questions that sound innocent. "I am sure there is a good reason that deadline was missed again." A remark like that doesn't accuse. It invites others to think poorly without the manipulator ever appearing malicious. In politics, this is called framing. In offices, it's gossip disguised as curiosity. In relationships, it can be doubt disguised as concern. The third technique is the velvet glove of control. The old iron fist is obvious. People resist it. But when control is wrapped in softness, people comply willingly. A partner might say, "I'm so glad I could help you with that promotion," subtly reminding you of your dependence. A manager might frame long hours as a team commitment, making resistance feel selfish. Marketers craft false choices where every option leads to a purchase, yet the customer feels empowered. This is control without appearing controlling. And then there is the highest form of modern Machiavellianism, metamanipulation. It is not about forcing choices, but about shaping the illusion of choice. Negotiators offer concessions on trivial points to secure agreement on what truly matters. Leaders present predetermined outcomes as collaborative decisions. Social platforms design interfaces that funnel users towards certain behaviors while preserving the feeling of autonomy. People believe they are acting freely, when in fact their range of action was carefully shaped in advance. The genius of these methods is not in their cruelty, but in their invisibility. Most people recognize and resist obvious manipulation, but subtle influence slips beneath awareness. It doesn't trigger defenses. It guides rather than pushes. And it works, precisely because it feels like freedom. If Machiavelli showed us how power operates, then the natural question becomes, how do you defend yourself against it? Because whether you choose to manipulate or not, you can be sure that others will. Ignorance of these tactics doesn't protect you. It only makes you vulnerable. The first line of defense is awareness. Recognize the patterns. Manipulation thrives in the shadows of unawareness, in the moments when emotions override reason. Pay attention to how people present choices. Ask, what do they gain if I agree? If the benefits are lopsided, you may be walking into a trap disguised as an opportunity. The second defense is spotting emotional leverage. Machiavellians understand that logic rarely moves people, emotion does. They might invoke guilt. If you really cared, you'd do this for me. They might manufacture urgency. We need a decision right now. They might stage grand symbolic acts designed to sway you. Whenever someone pushes you to act quickly, emotionally, or dramatically, pause. Distance yourself. Ask why now? Why this way? That moment of reflection breaks their momentum. The third defense is resisting the performance of appearances. Remember, symbolic actions often weigh more heavily in perception than substance. A grand gesture from a partner, a public speech from a leader, a headline from a company. These are performances. Do not mistake the stage play for the full story. Ask, what lies behind this symbol? What actions have I not seen? By separating appearance from reality, you remove their strongest weapon. Finally, protect yourself by strengthening your own self-reliance. The less you depend on others for validation, approval, or opportunity, the harder you are to manipulate. Machiavelli noted that those who rely completely on others are the easiest to control. Independence, emotional, financial, intellectual, is the strongest shield against subtle coercion. When you no longer crave what someone else dangles before you, their power dissolves. The truth is simple. You cannot stop others from attempting to manipulate you, but you can strip their tactics of power. Awareness, skepticism, and self-reliance transform you from prey into equal player. And in a world where manipulation is constant, that awareness is not paranoia, it is survival. At this point, the question becomes deeper. If you understand these tools, fear, perception, manipulation, does that knowledge corrupt you? Is Machiavelli teaching us to become ruthless, or simply to see the world as it is? Machiavelli himself gave a sobering warning. A man who wishes to make a profession of goodness in everything must necessarily come to grief among so many who are not good. In other words, goodness alone cannot survive in a world where others are willing to exploit it. To remain blind to manipulation is not virtue, it is weakness. And weakness, in the presence of power, is often destroyed. But here lies the paradox. Power itself is neutral. The same tools that enable exploitation can also enable protection. The same principles that can deceive can also inspire. A leader who masters perception can manipulate a crowd or unite a community. A parent who understands fear and love can abuse their child or raise them with discipline and stability. The difference is not in the tactics themselves, but in the purpose behind them. Machiavelli forces us to face a difficult truth. Morality without power is fragile, but power without morality is dangerous. The challenge is not to reject influence, nor to abuse it, but to see clearly how it operates, and then choose consciously how to use it. Blind idealism is naive. Ruthless cynicism is corrosive. But realism, coupled with chosen virtue, allows you to act effectively in the world as it truly is, without surrendering to it completely. Power is not an illusion. It is the current that moves beneath every relationship, every negotiation, every decision. Machiavelli did not invent it, he only exposed it. You can reject it, you can abuse it, or you can master it. But what you cannot do is escape it. To ignore these truths is to live blind in a world that sees you clearly. So the choice is yours. Will you walk through life expecting loyalty where none exists? mistaking symbols for substance, offering goodness to those who will exploit it? Or will you see human nature as it is and act with eyes wide open? Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are. These words, written 5 centuries ago, remain a mirror. They force us to ask not only how others deceive us, but how we, too, choose to present ourselves to the world. If you've found value in exploring this dark but essential wisdom, consider joining us here, where we dive into the philosophies that most people avoid but that shape our lives every day. Because in the end, knowledge of power is itself power, and knowing how it works may be the most important survival skill of all.